super important. This is really heavy on my heart because I've been talking to homeschoolers a lot, and homeschoolers worry about the wrong things. And by the end of this, you're going to understand what I mean by that. I would love for you, as you're watching this, whether live or the replay, to hop into the chat, to say hello, say where you're from, and to be brave and share some of the concerns that you have in your heart about homeschool. There are a lot of common ones that I hear over and over again about, and we'll go into detail as we get deeper, but about when our kids are supposed to read and whether or not they're going to be behind at the end of the journey and all of those things. But I'm here for you. So what are the things that you are wrestling with in homeschool right now, or as you think about the next 6 months or few years in your homeschool journey? Because I want to make sure that we touch bases with that. So here's the roadmap of what we're going to be doing. We're going to be talking about 5 different areas of just homeschool in general. We're going to talk about the big questions and how the big concerns that homeschoolers have tend to be that they're looking at it from the wrong direction and they're asking the wrong questions, which is why there's worry and why there's anxiety. We're going to be talking about filling the bucket, the secret to writing, the reality that we live in 2023 or beyond, if you're watching this as a replay later, how to step back and see the big picture. And then I'm going to give you an invitation to join me in a private phone call later so that we can talk about how I can help you in your homeschool journey. So again, make sure that you say hi. This is by design an interactive conversation. I want you to ask questions. If somebody is saying something and you have encouragement that you can share, don't hold back, right? We are stronger as homeschoolers together when we are coming from a place of like-mindedness, where we're focusing on raising champion level kids that are loving and kind and responsible and diligent and teachable and all the things, right? So before I get deeper, I'm just going to peek, make sure. So if you have questions, comments, concerns, hold your complaints, but everything else, go ahead and drop them into the chat. And I'd like to give you a glimpse of, well, this is like one of my favorite pictures. Okay, one of my favorite scenes. In this scene, it's short. I'm going to play it for you in a second. The peace and joy of homeschool is represented here by the flag. And what you're going to see is the scrambling of homeschoolers and bloggers and publishers trying to help, trying to get to the flag, which represents peace. And I want you to see if you can picture who I am in this scene. So let's watch it together. Ready? I love this so much because the reality is that the peace and the joy and the hope and the delighting in homeschool that you dream about is attainable. And it's easier than it looks. It's easier than you've been led to believe. And there is this mad rat rush, this mad scurrying of activity and lessons and curriculum and ideas and all these things to make you feel like, okay, if we do this and we do it well, then we're going to get to that flag. But my job at the end of the homeschool journey, right? We've been homeschooling 25 years. My job is to walk up to that pole, pull the peg, and bring the joy and just the exhale that you need in order to step into your homeschool journey. If you want this, just raise your hand and shout out in the comments, say me, so that I can tell that you're still there. I'm going to take a sip of my little water. Let me know that you are, yes, you are absolutely looking for peace. So homeschool special needs high schooler challenge is helping my son move at his pace and not my expected pace. Oh my goodness, that's true whether your kids are special needs or not. Wanting them to move at our pace puts so much pressure and strain. So here we go. We're homeschoolers, and the main thing that we get tripped up on is that we focus on the wrong things. We're looking at curriculum, grade level, learning benchmarks, our lesson plans, and we forget to look at like the obvious things like, did they really just put an empty container back in the refrigerator? It's like, come on, folks, let's not get focused on the wrong things, but actually see our kids. One of the biggest questions and concerns that I get when I'm talking to homeschoolers is, when are my kids going to fill in the blank? It's usually reading that they're concerned about. When is my 7-year-old going to learn to read? When is my 12-year-old going to learn to read? My 3-year-old. So this idea of when, and it's the wrong question, because it's not a matter of when they're going to read, but that they're going to read, right? Give me a thumbs up or say something in the chat if any of this resonates with you. Because the beauty of reading is not that our kids achieve this magic day that they can open a book and delight in story, although that is the goal. The beauty of reading is that it fills their soul. It fills that creative bucket within them that they're going to reach into to pull out ideas and story and character that will become a part of their ability to communicate, both in written form and in oral form. And so it's not when kids read, it's that they read. And the entire time that they are under our roofs, we need to be reading to them, enjoying stories with them, and listening to audiobooks so that we are the ones ensuring that they are under the spout where the ideas come out, right? We have to have them marinated in story, because everything flows out of an overflowing imagination. If you hand a child a piece of paper and you ask them to write a letter or an essay, but they have not been exposed to experiences and vocabulary and beautiful writing, they're going to stare at that piece of paper and say things like, I hate this. I hate writing. I don't know what to say. They're just left dumbfounded. There's a better way to pull creative ideas out of our kids. And the challenge is that the worry comes because we approach it the wrong way. We hand our kids a piece of paper and we say, hey, write a letter. Hey, write an essay, when we're not teaching them how to look at a topic, look at an idea, and approach it from all of their 5 senses, helping them build vocabulary webs and idea webs, and then identify the things that are just exciting in their heart, almost to the point where they can't contain them. And that's something that we teach inside of our Homeschooling Olympians program. You know, it's people worry about when their kids are going to read. They worry about how well their kids are going to communicate as far as writing. And I hear a lot of people concerned about the lack of ability to write in a way that we can read handwriting, right? They want their kids to have beautiful handwriting. And I worried about this too. Doctor, I'm going to ask you to just mute your screen just at this moment. There will be a chance for you to hop on in a minute. But we worried about the ability for the kids to have eloquent handwriting as well. And I want you to just pause and think about this for a second, because if you wanted to teach your kids how to ride a horse, that would be an amazing skill, right? An amazing skill, an amazing experience. But if you required if all the kids were required to learn how to saddle a horse and to ride it for 5 miles and back and take care of that horse before they got their driver's license, you can see that that's not a perfect fit for the world that they're living in today, right? That makes sense. So what we need to understand when it comes to handwriting is that we have to embrace the world of now. The kids are going to type 97% more than they're going to actually write things by hand. Now, handwriting is important, and I do believe in excellence. I do believe in diligence, but we can use the tools of today to help teach our kids how to write if we can understand that we're talking about two different things here. Legible writing and creative writing are two different animals. And we need to focus on the goal that our kids are going to be excellent communicators. So it's okay if some of those kids need you to be a secretary. Out of our 5 kids, I always held the pencil until the kids were able to have their hand keep up with the flow of ideas coming out of their brain. The practical, how do you write the letter D versus B, right? Which one is which? That was a very simple exercise that we did with all sorts of things. But the beauty of writing a story or a beautiful sentence or a creative idea, I would hold the pencil and they would speak so that their imagination wasn't tripped over by the fine motor development in their hand. Does that make sense? So embrace today, embrace the fact that they're going to type. If handwriting, beautiful, eloquent handwriting is your goal, have that be something that you do. That's what you're doing. It's just handwriting. You're just practicing how they write their name. You're just practicing how you create a beautiful birthday card, and the focus is to make it beautiful. But for their ideas to come flowing out of them, start by just capturing their ideas. Now, there are things that you can do to ensure that your children have a better chance of having legible writing, and that is to focus on those fine motor skills that are lacking with a lot of kids today because they spend so much time on a screen typing and poking at touch screens, that they're not developing their motor skills the way that we used to when we were little. Like, I never touched a phone. Obviously, I'm that old. Never had a phone until I was a mom. Like, I was in my 20s before I would let my cell phone die, and I never had it charged. But we had fine motor skill activities. So Play-Doh and Legos and blocks and stringing things on beads, things that exercise these fine motor skills. One of our sons for a season wanted to be a cardiothoracic surgeon. And one of the things that he discovered as he was studying that is that medical schools today are noting that adults don't have the fine motor skills necessary in order to do fine surgeries because they don't have the motor skills. So we need to help our kids develop fine motor skills. It can be as simple as doodling and drawing. It can be as standard as doing pencil control activities like dot to dots or trace the way that the letters go, or taking a piece of paper and creating some kind of a line that the kids then trace on there. It can also be fine motor control where you're doing lots of squishing and things, lots of paper, lots of cutting, tearing, squishing. You want to really get at these fine motor skills for your kids. One of my kids, we call him our gentle giant. He grew so fast. He has always been in the 105th percentile for size. And what that meant, especially when he was under 16, that his gross motor skills were where he needed to concentrate because he was trying to stay upright in this huge, tall body. His fine motor skills were very underdeveloped. So we spent a lot of time just letting him play and build with Legos so that he could get these fine motor skills under control. So I am going to pause really quickly and just double check, see if there's any chats. So there's no questions so far. So we've talked about the worry of, when is my child going to read? Will their handwriting be legible? I can tell you right now that my doctor is brilliant, but you cannot read his writing. And the nurses tease him, and yet he is brilliant. And beautiful handwriting is a skill, and it's something that needs to be honed over a very long period of time. The reality of writing, when it comes from, when you think about screwing the pole, trying to get to the piece inside of homeschool, is to recognize that writing does not mean necessarily paragraphs and essays and book reports and research papers. We have to remember. So here's me pulling the peg and bringing the pole down. The goal is not that your kids hold a pencil correctly. The goal is that they become excellent communicators. So how do you do that? How do you want your, and excellent communication has two forms. It has the written word and it has the spoken word. So how do you help your kids communicate beautifully in the written form? I've done a teaching. I'm going to pop the link. Let me grab it right now. I did a teaching in a workshop called the 3 no-nos of writing. And the reality is that every single piece of, I can't walk and chew gum at the same time. So it's 3 no-nos of writing. You can watch it later. It is a YouTube video recording of a workshop that I taught. But the reality is that every single piece of communication, this workshop, an email that I'm going to write later, a letter that I'm going to write to my dad, an essay about, how to decorate with Legos in the, whatever you're writing. Every single piece of communication has these 3 pieces of things that you need to know in order to rock that communication. The first one is your intended audience. Who is it for? Because you pitch and vary the way that you write and your choice of words and vocabulary based on who your audience is. A very easy example is if you were writing a note to a 4-year-old, you would use very different language than if you were writing to a 47-year-old professor for some kind of thesis project or something. So who is it for? What is the purpose of this piece of writing? So people say, my kid can't write a 5-paragraph essay. Okay, well, why? What does he need to write an essay for? What is the purpose of that essay? And kids need to be able to wrap their head around that. Is it to entertain somebody, like a creative story? Is it to inform somebody about something that they've learned? Is it to persuade them? They need to know why. Why am I doing this? What is the purpose of this piece of communication? The last piece is that everything has its own set of vocabulary. So is there, or what are the specialized words, phrases, terms that are necessary in order to communicate this idea to the appropriate audience? So these 3 no-nos of writing are a broken record that we can use as we're teaching all communication with our kids. We're going to make a grocery list to go shopping for Thanksgiving. Who is it for? It's for us. What's its purpose? So that we don't forget to buy a turkey. And do we need any specialized vocabulary? Maybe we might not know what pearl onions are or whatnot. There is a hidden 4th of the 3 no-nos, and that comes in higher writing. Some things have prescriptive templates or formats that need to be followed. So if you're writing a professional white paper or a proposal or creating a resume, those will have specific templates or formats that need to be followed. Typically something that you don't need to worry about until the kids are in high school or think about. So demystifying writing, looking at any assignment, if you're going through curriculum and it says what they want you to do is have your kids write, excuse me, let me take a sip of water. In case there was any doubt, my kids think I'm awesome. So if the curriculum that you're following says that the assignment for this lesson on deciduous trees is to write a 5-paragraph essay, you can look at that and say, why? What would the purpose of this essay be? It might be to inform somebody about the differences between evergreen and deciduous trees, and then go into different types and in different whatever on deciduous trees. So you can look at that and you can say, okay, the purpose would be to inform. Is an essay the right, is that what I want them to do? Is that what they would want to do? Would it be better served for them to write a letter or to write an email? And you can just lean into communication in a way that makes sense according to whatever it is that you are doing with your child. Does that make sense? I see something popped up in the chat. How does spelling fit in this writing model? That's an excellent question. I'm going to confess that we didn't 100% focus on spelling. We didn't even 5% focus on spelling. Instead, what we did was we encouraged the kids to write in the brainstorming process, which I'm almost to in a second. We did a lot of brainstorming, and then we fully embraced the writing process. This is something that I teach and will workshop inside of Homeschooling Olympians. So if you're inside, know that that's coming. But the idea is that you fill your child's bucket with vocabulary. You're reading to them all the time. You're grabbing fun, amazing words like phantasmagoric. That's one of my favorite words. And you lean into, well, this is a fun word. Let's look at how you spell it. You're grabbing vocabulary. You're doing a bunch of brainstorming and free writing. You are the secretary, writing down their thoughts and ideas. Eventually, the writing will get to a point in the process that they're going to write it themselves. And so they're modeling their spelling after what you've already written or typed on the page. And over time, this seeps deep into who they are. Again, it is 2023 at the time of this writing. And my youngest son didn't read till he was 10. He has crippling dyslexia. And so for him, spelling is a big deal. And I remember he was about 14, 15 when he's like, Mom, I'm embarrassed by my lack of ability to spell. And I said, stop. I said, stop for a second. You are, beyond a shadow of a doubt, the most creative writer that I have raised, first of all, but that I've encountered. Your writing and your creative ability is so far and above anybody else that I've encountered. I want you to hear me and hear me well. You can hire an editor. You can ask for help to fine-tune your spelling and your punctuation. But to be able to teach your level of creativity is such a chore. If you had to choose between being an excellent speller and a brilliant creator, which would you choose? He's like, duh, a brilliant creator. I'm like, okay, so we're going to focus on the fact that you are a brilliant creator, and we're going to fill in the holes that you have in spelling as you go, but you're going to lean heavily on tools. So he took, because of his dyslexia, because it was hard for him to write, he took to the keyboard once that part of his learning light bulbs came on. And so he would type, and he liked that because it would underline the words that were misspelled. So he could click on it and he could see what the recommended spellings were, and then he could self-correct. So spelling is important, but it's not a hurdle worth tripping over and dying on, if that makes sense. I believe that we should be able to spell, but that we need to concentrate on communication and embracing the writing process. It's more important for your kids to be able to write their ideas or capture them phonetically so that they can understand what they wrote, and then to understand that it's okay to have misspelled the words here, but then you catch that in the editing process. You're on my email list. You know I leave typographical errors all the time. It does not it does impact how people look at you in a professional realm. So if you're writing polished white papers, business proposals, job resumes, and those types of things, they need to be spot on. There needs to be no grammatical errors, no spelling errors, etc. But that's where you filter through and you go through this editing process. But in the normal life, when you're writing your grocery lists, when you're writing letters and those kinds of things, you can pause and you can look up how to spell curriculum. Or is it lose or is it loose? Does it have one O? Does it have two? Like, you can do that and look it up really quick. Your kids have this tool right in their hand. So most likely, and they have access in order to look things up. So I see a couple of chats popping up. Let me just double check. Yay. Okay. Dr. Doug, we use more oral demonstrations of what our children learned when writing to demonstrate content knowledge was prescribed in our curriculum. So oral demonstrations, I'm assuming where you're speaking about what the kids are. If you could clarify that, that would be great. Hannah, what would you suggest in teaching typing? Would you just make sure the basics are handwriting or write down, or just be their writer, typewriter? Again, there's two different things. You have communication and you have the physical act of understanding how to form the letters so that you can write down things yourself, right? So you've got handwriting and communication. Handwriting, I do suggest a little bit of handwriting every day, but that can be as simple as taking your whiteboard or a piece of paper and writing, today is Saturday, October 14th, 2023. My name is Becky, and today I want to go for a walk. And then you talk about that, and you talk about what you want to do, and then the kids write that down. One of the things that we did was I would write that on paper. The kids would trace over my writing, and then they would write it again or a piece of it again. Does that make sense? So we would do drawing and a sentence. We would do a daily copy work thing that they would trace and then write. The tracing is so they can get the muscle memory. We also did standard handwriting workbooks like Handwriting Without Tears. I loved that one. We also did Danielian handwriting. One of my kids loves beautiful handwriting, so we eventually let him do things like calligraphy. And so at first, it's just the physical act of forming the letters, but it doesn't need to necessarily be on paper with pencil. It could be that you're writing in sugar or Jello or in sand or with a stick or sidewalk chalk. Like, get creative, right? Think of the flag and knock the flag down for you. Don't scurry and do all the things that you think that they should do because that's what they did in school. Instead, pull the peg and bring the flag down. Okay, we need to learn how to form the letter B. So let's make a bunch of B's on the driveway in sidewalk chalk, and then let's mix in some D's, and then let's hop and only jump on the right letters, right? Just get creative with that. As far as typing, there are a lot of typing programs out there. The one that we used was called Typesy, and my kids loved it. So Typesy, and I can grab a link later because the kids absolutely loved it. It was gamified. Okay, so good. Thanks for addressing spelling. My daughter had the same thing like your son, so I bought this huge curriculum to avoid with my little guy out of fear. This is an example of me worrying and going too far with curriculum. It is so easy to think about what it is that you want your kids to learn, and then to buy something that you think is going to help you, and then lose sight of your kids and stare at that thing, right? And the curriculum then takes the driver's seat and it becomes the priority rather than your child. And it's subtle. It's super subtle. We want our kids to learn how to write. We want them to communicate well, but we forget that the goal is excellent communication. So we look at all the things that we have on our desk, and it's writing, handwriting practice. It's drafting what a sentence or a paragraph or an essay should look like. Then it's writing it in beautiful penmanship. And we're looking, and instead of looking at our child who's sitting there dying because they don't care at all about what that curriculum is asking them to do, we're looking at the curriculum and we're thinking, if we don't check off all of these boxes, we're failing our kids, which is where the worry comes in, right? The worry creeps in because we look at the curriculum and not our child. Do I want my child to have handwriting that other people can read? Of course. But I have 5 sons, and I can tell you that they don't write when they want to communicate to people, not usually. They typically type. So it was more important that they learned how to type fast enough in order to communicate in today's world. So by the time they graduated high school, they had gone through all of what are the classes called? They went through keyboarding type classes and took type C type lessons so that they could get their speed up. However, we did want them to have handwriting that was legible. So what did we do? We had a little bit of handwriting practice workbooks, especially I used them for busy work. I'm getting ready to do story time, do 1 page and then, or do 2 lines. And then I would give them a highlighter and I would say, find the letters that you wrote on the page that you think are magical. And I want you to highlight those 2 letters. So they would self-correct or self-grade by finding the ones that they loved the best. Then we did copy work and found opportunities to write things down, like we make handmade birthday cards. And that's something, we've got a big family, so they're constantly having to make birthday cards. So they were always having a little bit of opportunity to write things down themselves. Does that make sense? So handwriting is important, but it takes much longer. It takes much longer. Tell me what you learned rather than write about it. So important, Dr. Douglas, so important. The ability to communicate what you're learning does not need to be written down. It's important that it can be, and it should be, especially as your kids get into the launching stage. But when they're in the foundations and the flourishing and fun, the conversations are where the eloquent language gets to be tossed around, right? They can use these big words. One of my homeschooling Olympians just this week was talking about her young son was saying about his younger sister that she had the audacity to do something. And she looked at him like, audacity. He just tossed out and used properly the word audacity, which is well beyond his years, but he had absorbed because of story. And it's more important that our kids learn to use words well at first than to write them well, right? We want our 2-year-olds to say, mommy, please, daddy, please. We do not hand them a pencil and expect them to write it down first. We just want them to be able to speak it first. The same is with writing. The same is with communication. They need to be able to form their ideas first and then learn to write them down. They're different skills. The ideation is very different than recording, very different skill. So I'm just going to peek, so no more. So let's move on. One of the magic things that you can do with your kids to develop their communication skills is to become a master brainstormer, a master brainstormer. Now, in the realm of writing, a lot of adults that I talk to are like, well, I don't know what to write about. I don't know what to tell a story about. And this is where you too can embrace the technology of today, because they have some amazing random story creators. There's one by Scholastic. There's a random word generator that creates writing prompts. There's this one by Servicescape that we love. And the beauty of these is that it won't just say, write about something that you love, but it'll set a backdrop where you have a character, a setting, and a challenge with a little bit of like oomph to it so that you can hook your teeth into it. In the Sailor Home, I recognize that if I gave the kids a piece of paper and said, write a story, it would fall short. But I have 5 sons. So if you have sons or competitive kids, all you have to do is create a contest. And so what I would do is I would create a writing prompt that the kids would write, and then their dad would do a blind judging on which story gripped him. But the stories I would pattern after some of their favorite authors. So I would say things like, I would write down a prompt like, it was a typical Tuesday. The grass was long, and Mom sent me out to cut the grass because we were getting ready to host a family reunion. So imagine my surprise as I'm making my fourth pass on the grass when something caught my eye. I reached down and my heart stopped. And then the kids would pick up the story from there. So the beautiful thing is that if you give the kids a creative enough prompt, it tickles their imagination. They reach into their creative bucket and they're like, wait, I know what could happen. And then they take the story from there. You can be their secretary. They can do speak to text, where they can write down their words as fast as they can think of them out loud, or they can just write them phonetically without worrying. Never grade punctuation or spelling on a first draft of anything. In the book Bird by Bird, really great about writing, I'm going to paraphrase, but she says it's important that you write a lousy first draft. She swears, but you have to get that yucky first draft out, because the beautiful ideas, the amazing ideas, are usually tucked underneath a bunch of really bad ideas. So if you try to edit in the creative process, you shut down the creativity. So you need to have this ability to get the ideas out. And a beautiful way to do that is with brainstorming. And I would say that if you took 100 writing assignments or 100 ideas that you wanted your child to learn to communicate about, and if 90 of them, all you did was brainstorm, what would it look like? What would it sound like? What would it taste like? Oh, what could happen if this happened? And if you just talked about it, and you I love my whiteboard. So I did a lot of, I'm going to stand in front of the whiteboard and you just tell me, like, what would happen if this happened? And we would fill with ideas. If you did 90 out of 100 brainstorming activities, the other 10 activities, you'll have so much fertilizer for creative writing and the ability to pull some amazing projects out. So focus on the foundations, focus on filling their bucket, focus on reading and marinating story, recognizing the difference between the mechanics of writing and ideation. So different and so important that ideation and creativity and that kind of use of language is so much higher than, is it a B or a D? That just doesn't matter. It's just not that important. So releasing that worry, focusing on brainstorming. And let's see where we are. Okay, so why do I share all of this? Here I am. I met my husband yesterday. 34 years ago yesterday, I met my husband. So why am I sitting here today, an older version of my younger self who always wanted to be a teacher? Why am I out here talking about how to let go of worry, where to knock the flagpole down, to bring these things, to bring peace and joy to you? It's because we made it all the way to the end. We homeschooled all 5 of our sons, and some of it we did badly. We made a whole bunch of mistakes, especially with our oldest son. But as we homeschooled more and more, and our quiver filled with more sons, we got more relaxed and more able to see what really mattered in homeschool. And what that's done for me is it's given me the ability to not only pull the peg and bring the flag down to you, but it's given me magic X-ray vision. So when I am speaking to homeschoolers, I hear, oh, I'm worried that my daughter is going to fall behind in homeschool. But I'm able to look and say, but she's 6. And you just told me that all these things that she just soaked up and learned because of something that you did with her. So why is it you think that she's going to fall behind? It's because you're focused on the wrong things, right? You have to stop worrying about whether or not your kids are supposed to read today, and look at, do they love stories? Do they love stories? Because you need to read to them and over them so that they fall in love with story. Can they write? Do they know how to brainstorm an idea? Can they look at something through the lens of their five senses? Okay, we went to the beach on Saturday. What did it smell like? What did it look like? What did the sand feel like? You know, one of the activities, one of my sons pointed out when we first moved to Washington, and we live in the side of Washington that's the wettest, but we also live very close to the Puget Sound. You can look at that. It's the cutout on Washington. And we're 5 minutes away from the water all the time. And within the first week, he said, it's amazing to me how the water looks different every single day. And so we made it a challenge to try to come up with adjectives to describe what the water looks like. Sometimes it's peaceful, sometimes it's glass, sometimes it's angry, sometimes it's agitated and churning. And so brainstorming in your environment so that you're bringing these things to your child's attention and you're starting to attach words the same way that a second grader, a 7-8-year-old might just say that everything is big. The elephant is big. The car is big. The train is big. And you can start brainstorming other words. The elephant is massive. The car is long or stretched out. And you can start to brainstorm better, different ways to say the same things. So instead of worrying about whether or not your child can do this or that, you can focus on these types of things. Can they follow directions? When they get stuck, do they break their pencil and walk away? Or do they know that there's somebody or something out there that can help them, right? Being an expert help seeker is a goal by the time they graduate high school. Are they excited? Are they excited about anything? Do they love to learn? Are they excited to learn? Are your relationships with your kids strong enough to withstand the gauntlet that they're going to go through when the hormones hit the fan right around the time they're 12? 9 to 14, but right around that gauntlet. Are you going to survive? You need to survive. And have you lowered the flag in a way that you have enough time and space in your day to explore so that you can notice the water? So important that you're living a life in a way that you can lean into what's going on around you. So this is where I'm going to encourage you to step back and to take inventory of the things that spin in your head, the grappling of the flagpole. Like, what are those thoughts? What are those themes? And how can you change your perspective so that your flagpole can come down? It usually starts with addressing the things that you're worried about. Are you wasting money on curriculum? You know, you bought all this stuff because you thought this is the ticket. This is what's going to help them master their math facts, or this is how they're going to learn to fall in love with reading, or this is what everybody says they're supposed to do in science or history. So are you just throwing curriculum at the flagpole, hoping that that stack of curriculum is what's going to lower the flag? Are you worried that you're not doing enough with your kids? That's a common one, because without a clear perspective, how can you judge whether or not you've done enough? Are you worried that you're not teaching the correct things, that you're setting your kids up for failure, or you're concerned that other people are going to see what's going on and they're going to say, see, I told you homeschool was a bad idea? Are you a people pleaser type person? Or like the mom that I talked to yesterday, are you worried that your 6-year-old is falling behind their peers? Like, what are you concerned about? What are you worried about? If you're looking at those things, I want you to switch your gaze. I want you to make sure that you have your master homeschool goals set, because this right here is the secret to you not being so consumed by worry. I can confidently tell you that curriculum does not affect the trajectory of your child's education, because we taught with our homeschool goals in place, in mind. We didn't start that way. We started with me crying over curriculum because I couldn't do it all. I couldn't be a 5th grade teacher, a 3rd grade teacher, a 2nd grade teacher, a kindergarten teacher, and a mom all at the same time. And so it was my husband's wisdom wherein he looked at me and said, Becky, by the time the kids graduate high school, what is it that we want them to know? And once we had those master homeschool goals in place, everything changed, right? You can stop tripping over whether or not your 7-year-old can read, whether or not your 10-year-old knows their 7 times tables, or that concern that your 13-year-old has never written an essay. It really doesn't matter. When you have your homeschool goals in place, you can confidently say, well, my kid didn't read till 10, so what? You know, he never held a pencil really until he was 11, not to write. So what? In our house, all 5 of our kids were delayed. If you match them with grade levels in the public school system, they didn't read early, they didn't write early. Some of them didn't even talk until they were 4. They just didn't line up like the stereotypical kids out there in culture. But we didn't worry about that. We marinated them in excellence. We marinated them in faith. We marinated them in a family culture. We concentrated on their hearts and their characters, and we read over and over and over again to them. We just marinated them in story. And this, my friend, is where peace comes in, because when you know that your goal is that your kids need to master their math facts by the time they graduate high school, the individual lessons, just they lose all their grip, because you can look at them and go, okay, does this lesson serve that goal? Can I think of a more fun or creative way to teach this concept, to teach this thing? Like I've talked a lot that we did math on the windows with dry erase markers and did very little math on paper all the way up until high school. And it didn't affect the kids. I even accidentally raised a mathematician and scientist doing that very thing. So the piece that comes when you know your goals is beautiful, and it takes time. And there's usually a deprogramming process to go from, wow, that sounds great, but how? Which is why there's the 6-week part of Olympians that helps program your mind, not program, but deprogram your mind and step into peace. Because the reality is that curriculum, not always, but can be a bully. It breathes down your neck, right? And it makes you feel like if they did 3rd grade last year, they better do 4th grade next year. If they did page 17 yesterday, they better do page 18 tomorrow, right? It has that intrinsic pressure that's breathing on you. And we need to unchain ourselves from that. And we need to focus on what really matters. We need our kids to know that we see them, that we see what makes their hearts beat faster, the big things that are important to them. And they need to know that that's more important than what the curriculum is asking us to do or what we've written in our lesson plan. Kids and family first, because it is in fact what is truly important. It's what makes all the difference in the world, is that we have our master homeschool goals. We focus on those. We focus on our families. We knit character and heart and attitude into everything that we do. And over the course of the journey, the kids thrive. It's beautiful. So I'm going to ask you to dream big and to think about the homeschool life that you've always imagined you would have. I'm guessing it has nothing to do with curriculum. I guess that when you close your eyes and you think, what do I want my homeschool life to be like? You think of things like living life out loud, laughter and learning and exploring together, working side by side with your kids to get things done and to teach them important things like throw that milk container away, change the empty toilet paper roll every single time. It only takes 3 seconds, right? You focus on the important things. So you dream big, you set your goals, and you take action, because so many homeschoolers are running around like chickens with their head cut off. I know, because there was a time that was me. And it is overwhelming when you're looking at the wrong things. If you're looking at curriculum and you're looking at what a 7th grader should do, rather than looking at your 7th grader, you start running and chasing after all the things. You become that mob scurrying around the flagpole. And I'm telling you, walk up to the flagpole, pull the peg, and let the flag come down. It's why we did homeschooling curriculum, homeschooling Olympians, because people need to be broken free from their curriculum. They need to recognize that raising excellent communicators is the goal, not the essay. They and their kids need to fall in love with learning. They want to save money, and they need to be empowered to draw closer to their families. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to focus on your master homeschool goals. And I want you, if you don't have them nailed down, by the time your kids graduate high school, what do you want them to know? You can borrow ours as a starting point. Our goals are to share our faith with our kids in everything that we do, to make sure that they master their basic math facts before they graduate high school: add, subtract, multiply, divide, fractions, decimals, percentages, measurements, that kind of stuff. The stuff they're going to actually use. If they want to be a mathematician, that's why God invented college professors, right? So that's where my son went through all the calculuses and chemistries and physics and stuff. Basic math facts, marinate them in excellent literature so that they will fall in love with story, and make sure that they become excellent communicators, both written and orally. Those are our master homeschool goals. And I have videos all the way back to 2012 of me saying the same thing. They never changed, and they gave us so much freedom and peace in homeschool. So once you have your goals set, simplify the things that you're doing at home. Cut out anything that's busy work and make space for living. You need to find space in your day that you can breathe, right? If you don't have this set, you almost feel like you can't get up from the kitchen table, because there's no way to judge whether or not you've done enough, because you're chasing the wrong thing. So get your goals in place and get to a place where you can breathe. Now, worry and anxiety and concerns and challenges are real. But if you can shift your focus to the right thing, it really does eliminate that side of concern. Will it always go away? Because you are on social media, you are looking around and you're rubbing shoulders with other people. Even when we were at the beach this past week, and we got to observe orcas in the wild, which was fantastic. There were two little kids playing in the sand, and they were juxtapositioning about who was smarter, who had the higher IQ, who knew the most. I mean, people just compare themselves to each other. But I want you to know that I can help you if that's what you need. You can leave the chains and the worry behind. I want you to imagine what it feels like to have confidence knowing that you're doing the right thing inside of homeschool. That's what goals do for you. They allow you to see, this is a perfect fit for where my child is at this stage in homeschool. You can actually delight as you watch your kids run and play and just rest in life and learn naturally, sometimes using curriculum, sometimes using just happenstance, right? Those serendipitous moments that come up as you're living. And you can feel joy as you let go of all the fluff and concentrate on those foundational things. So important. So if you work with me, I promise that you will not waste money on curriculum. You might become one of those, what do they call it? Like, you might have buyer's remorse out of some of the curriculum that you've purchased, but you're going to have the tools so that you can look at what it is you want to accomplish with your kids, and you'll have a better way of filtering what it is that you need in order to equip and educate your kids. You're going to have time in your day so that you can actually step away from the school part and concentrate on the home part. And you're going to leave the frustration of wrestling with lessons with your kids behind, because you're going to see your kids and not the curriculum as the center focus. I'm not going to promise that you'll never bicker and argue with your kids again, because that's ridiculous. You know that kids are still going to be real. But I do have a gift for you if you hang all the way to the end for me. So I'm dropping that link in there. And this is where all the information will come from. I'm just checking chats real quick. So we have Homeschooling Olympians, and I am really excited to share with you what it is. The link in the chat is going to give you a a gift from me. It's a copy of my book, but then it'll also link you to the details of the Homeschooling Olympians thing, which is a 3-part master, individual, personalized, beautiful coaching program that helps you take the pin out of the pole and bring the piece right to you. You're gonna notice that there's no prices on there, and that's by design. And I'm going to explain that in a second. There are 3 pieces to Olympians. The first piece is a self-paced 6-week class that walks you from where you are today to where you can reach the flag. And it's so important. And I designed it the way that I did because you would cheat. Because I would cheat. It's dripped out to you over 6 weeks so that you actually take a full week to chew on the ideas inside the module so that you can actually step forward. If I had access to the whole class, I would jump right through to the end, which is where we do hands-on, beautiful, like secret sauce type planning where you bring learning to life by using some amazing hands-on projects. But it's important that you have your master goals and your mindset all ready to go before you try to sprinkle in more stuff. The magic of the Olympians is this middle piece, the group coaching and the community that's inside. Parents like you, parents like me that want to break the chains of curriculum and actually just teach to their family, teach to their kids. And it is a magical space. And I don't want to overuse or cliche the word magical. It truly is an amazing space. And then the last piece is that you have access to me in your back pocket where we can do one-on-one chatting and coaching. My husband is a big part of Homeschooling Olympians. He's kind of the silent behind the scenes one. He's our vision caster. He's the one that has always made sure that the boys and I stay on task and we go for goals first before we get lost in the weeds of things that we need to do. And I'm super excited that he's starting to join inside the group chats, the group counseling. This is a sneak peek of the Olympians piece. It comes at you in these different modules. And then like the second module is the emotional roller coaster that we go through as homeschoolers. And it has all of the parts and pieces that help you get off that roller coaster and start to thrive inside. The next piece is what one of the homeschoolers inside calls real-time help. Every Tuesday right now, we do these group coaching calls where we address something that's going on inside somebody's real life inside homeschooling and breathe encouragement and ideas and help bring that flag down. Because even when you have the mindset of I'm going to teach my kids first and then I'm going to use curriculum when needed, it's still easy to fall back into curriculum. So this space is a beautiful space where you have access to these live meetups that then have they record so that you can access back to them. There are challenges that we go through as a community, and this feed places where you can drop your questions and complaints. No complaints allowed, right? Just concerns. And then there's this ace in the back pocket. For now, it's just me, but you have the ability to book coaching sessions with me where we can dive into what you have going on in your homeschool right now. Now, this is for you if you're exhausted. If you thought you were going to find freedom in homeschooling, but you feel chained to your kitchen table. If you're frustrated because the lesson planner is running your day rather than your family vision, or if you feel defeated, you always feel behind, you feel harassed by your curriculum, that bloody checklist in your lesson planner is like, finish me, finish me, finish me. So if you have any level of worry and concern, then this Homeschooling Olympians is for you. So everything that you need is now in the chat. So I'm going to stop my screen sharing and I'm just going to come and I'm going to say, I am so excited that you're here because the key to breaking free from worry, the ability to break free from concerns in homeschool really stems from having the proper focus of your family, your goals, your kids. Curriculum's not evil and bad. And I talk about breaking the chains of curriculum. I'm not talking about having a bonfire where you burn your curriculum. I'm talking about the ability to see the kid first and then to decide whether or not curriculum in any way, shape, or form helps serve you as you're teaching that child. So I hope that makes sense. Does anybody have any comments that you would like to share or any questions? I'm going to just hang out here and see. Continue. There's just looking at the chat session. So I'm just going to scroll back and see if I missed anything before I say adieu and have a great day. Say hello. I want to thank everybody that did join live. I know that it's tricky to get up early on a Saturday. I am going to be coming on doing these types of meetings more often, and I'm trying to find the pocket of time that's most convenient for homeschoolers. Jenny, thank you for joining. Hannah, thank you for joining. And Kim and Douglas, I am super thrilled with this. So did you find this helpful? I would love to know, do you feel hope that there is a better way to homeschool your kids? Do you feel like I addressed any of the concerns that you feel that you've been wrestling with inside of your own homeschool life, right? The fear of, are the kids falling behind? When are they going to read? When are they going to meet this benchmark? And do you feel that it's true that if you can change your focus onto your master homeschool goals and you can see your child and lean into the stage of homeschool that they're in right now, how that will truly bring the flagpole down and bring peace and joy into your homeschool? It's not a fast process. It is a process to get there, but it is completely and totally achievable. I've been working, letting go of fear is the hardest part. And I agree with you, Jenny, that the letting go is the hardest part. You know, we had 5 kids. Our oldest, we made a lot of mistakes with. But then with each child, and I was thankful we had 5 so that by the time we got to the last one, we knew what we were doing. But the fear of letting go of curriculum is so strong. It actually took me personally almost 20 years to get there. It's ridiculous. When I look back and I think of how hard it was to let go of the grip of curriculum and to just focus on the kids, it shouldn't have been that way. It really shouldn't have, because I was always my best homeschool mom self. We were always our best homeschool family when it was summer and curriculum was put away. It was winter and curriculum was put away. When we shoved everything aside to lean into, oh, you're excited about this? Let's learn about that. We'll come back to the other stuff later. Hey, Tamara, I'm going to have you go ahead and blot your camera just for a minute. We're just wrapping up just a sec. So when you are, it's so much easier to homeschool when you're not following your lesson planner sometimes. And so for me personally, it took me so long to be able to let go of the pressure of, oh, he's in 7th grade, so therefore he should do these things. He's in 8th grade, therefore he should do these things. And the beauty is that now, at the end, when I can look back, especially with our younger sons, but most especially with our youngest son, when I compare, sip of water. When I compare what we did academically to what we did as a family, memories and exploration and leaning into what the kids loved, his record looks like this. You know, as our older son kind of looks like this, but by the time we got good at this, it looked like this. Now, did he miss stuff? Absolutely. Because there's no way in the world that you can hit everything that people think that kids should learn. The benchmarks are not bad, but they're written by people that sell curriculum, right? And they're written by people that are trying to control education and govern education. The reality is, if we teach our kids how to learn, to love to read, to seek help when they get stuck, and to become excellent communicators, what can't they learn? I mean, what can't they learn? It's as if you take a 34-year-old and you drop them into your family room, and this person is amazing. They're loving, they're kind, they're hardworking, they're diligent, they're disciplined, they're eager, they're curious, but they've never seen a written word and they've never held a pencil. Are you going to be able to teach them anything? Absolutely, because they have a teachable heart. Is it going to take very long at all? Nope, because they have impeccable character and they know how to ask for help. They're teachable. If we can see that in our own children, knowing that if we just teach them how to learn and teach them how to ask for help and to know that there are different ways to get assistance as they are stumbling through learning, and that we can empower them with phrases like, this is hard, but with some practice and some help, I know I'm going to understand. I know I'm going to do this, right? Does that make sense? So letting go of fear is hard. And I'm embarrassed to say how long it took me to actually get there. But so anyway, that's kind of all that I have. So we've been on for a little bit over an hour. I would like to respect your time. Inside the chat, you will find 2 links, and I'm going to actually just drop them right here at the end. The first one, again, is the 3 no-nos of writing workshop that I did at a homeschool conference online. The next one is the thank you. You'll drop your email in there. From there, it'll send you to the Olympians detail page. Now, when you're scrolling, you're going to start clicking at the enroll now button, because you're gonna want the 6-week class. You're gonna want the group coaching, and you're gonna want the one-on-one, just me in your back pocket. You're gonna want that because all of those pieces work together to help you thrive. But you're not going to see the prices. Instead, what you're going to see is an invitation to talk with me on the phone. Because remember, I have X-ray vision, and my goal is not to overcomplicate your life and not to sell you anything that you don't need. So in order for me to properly place you inside of Homeschooling Olympians in a way that causes your flagpole to come down and into reach, we have to have the conversation on the phone. I am one homeschool mom. My husband is one homeschool dad. That means our homeschool community of people that we coach has to be small enough that we can give you the personalized attention that you need. So it requires a bravery step for you to connect with me on the phone so that you can see that I'm the same person when we talk on the phone that I am right now on camera. And there's a couple people that know me right here that can attest to the fact that, oh no, that's actually Becky, goofy and weird and always sitting in front of Legos. That's her. I'm the same person. And I need you to know, I need to see you. I need to see where you are in your homeschool journey. I need to understand what your current situation is, what stage your kids are in, what concerns that you have, so that I can breathe encouragement over you. And then we can talk about what it costs to be in there. What I can tell you is that the average homeschool family spends $600 per year per child homeschooling their kids. So if you have 5 years left in homeschool, that's like $5,000. Homeschooling Olympians does not cost that. It doesn't cost anywhere near that. I can guarantee that you will save money on curriculum over time, but I'll guarantee that you will also connect with your family, build tighter relationships, let go of fear, let go of anxiety, let go of the chains of curriculum, and you will experience the homeschool life that you dreamed about, but you started to doubt that was possible. So know that that's what's coming. That's what will be in your inbox. If you don't see any of that, then you just reach out to me at abetterwaytohomeschool@gmail.com. If you want to schedule, did it send? Kim left, so I'm just trying to send. So abetterwaytohomeschool@gmail.com. If you are ready and you're like, hey, I just want that meeting right away, email me and I'll get you a special spot in my calendar. Otherwise, you'll get access to my calendar where you can pick a special time, but I have some times closer if you wanted to get started right away. So that's it. That's all I have for you guys. Thank you for joining me. And I can't wait to see you, number one, in email, number two, in my calendar. I cannot wait to talk with you. And those chats are no obligation. So if it turns out that Olympians is a perfect fit for you, fantastic. We'll get you in right away. If it's not, I guarantee that you'll leave encouraged and blessed. And then yeah, I think that's it. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time.